Friends, I hope everybody can hear me. We want to start the shir for our beloved Eric Samson of blessed memory. And this is a great zchut and privilege and honor to be hosted on this channel and to record Mishna in Pirkei Avot in honor of Eric Samson of blessed memory. So this goes out to, obviously, the Samson family, the Sank family, all those that throughout the years supported myself and the yeshiva of Cape Town for over 25 years. And I'm actually giving this shir. I was supposed to give it from Israel, but the life takes us to different places. So actually I'm giving this shir now from Cape Town. So it is a double honor to say this shir in Cape Town and in honor of Eric. So we're going to start off by the Mishnah. We are in chapter 2 in Pirkei Avot on Mishnah 2. And the Mishnah starts off by Rabbi Gamliel, the son of Rav Yehuda HaNasi. Rabbi Gamliel was the end of the generation of the Nesiim. He was the son of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. As well as you're aware of, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi is the one that compiled the Mishnah, edited the Mishnah, the culmination of our oral Torah, oral law. And it is a big tribute that Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi decided to put his son into this Mishnah. And you'll soon understand the significance of why Rabbi Gamliel is in this Mishnah and why his father chose to put him in. So just for reference, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, the one that compiled the Mishnah, lived in the end of the 2nd century, compiled the Mishnah in 195. And Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi had a great endeavor in front of him, how to take all the oral law and compile it into 6 books of Mishnah, starting from Zeraim, ending at Teharot, the 6 volumes of Mishnah that we have. And Avot is actually, Masechet Avot, Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers, is actually in the Seder of Nezikin. And the Seder of Nezikin, whoever wants to learn how to be a pious Jew should learn Milei de Nezikin. So the ultimate culmination of the ethics of the Jewish people is brought in Pirkei Avot. So let's start with the Mishnah. Rabbi Gamliel says, the son of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, we gave enough introductions. He says, Yafet Talmud Torah derech eretz. It is praiseworthy. Yafeh in Hebrew is nice. But it is praiseworthy to learn Torah together with derech eretz. Derech eretz in Hebrew, a literal translation is the way of the land. Some people translate it as toil or work. But this, as we soon going to see, is a little bit problematic because the Mishnah repeats itself twice and uses 2 terminologies for what does it mean to work. One word, it says derech eretz, the way of the land. That's literally. And a person has to learn Torah, Talmud Torah. And on the other hand, he has to combine derech eretz, the way of the land, together with Torah. Why? The Mishnah gives us a reason. Sheyegiat shnehem mashkachat avon. If you indulge fully in these 2 aspects, Talmud Torah, learning Torah, and the way of the land, you will not come to sin. Mashkachat avon makes you forget about the sin. In other translations, other commentaries, Mashkachat avon, which means even if you sin, the sin is going to be forgotten. We can't go over all the commentaries today. But this is the first part of the Mishnah. So let's recap. Talmud Torah and Derech Eretz, if you indulge in these two fully, you will not come to sin. Second part, or the middle part of the Mishnah, actually repeats itself. V'chol Torah she'ein ima melacha. Any Torah that there is no work attached to it, there's no occupation attached to the learning of Torah. No matter how much Torah you learn, it's going to be nullified. Sofa lihitbatel, sofa betela, vegoreret avot. So basically, it's a double warning. Number one, all the Torah that you're going to learn is going to be nullified if you do not combine the work, the occupation, anything that a person can bring money to his family with. If you don't combine Torah with that, your Torah will be nullified. And not only that, the second warning is vegoreret avon. It will bring to you to commit a sin. Now, obviously, everybody is already asking themselves, we don't understand, Rabbi. We have hundreds of yeshivot in Israel, in America, Johannesburg, we have in Cape Town, we have in Australia, we have all these yeshivot, and we have people that are learning Torah 24/7. They're not doing any work, especially in Israel. We know the situation that there's literally 160,000 people today only learning. So what do they say about this Mishnah? Because the Mishnah gives two very serious warnings. We'll get to that question a little bit later. But let's finish the third part of this Mishnah. V'chol ha'amelim im hatzibur, all those that amelim in Hebrew means toiling and doing work and actually taking upon themselves a burden of the public, the tzibur, people that sit in shul committees, people that sit in different forums and how to broaden the life of the community. Kol ha'amelim hatzibur, whoever works hard to make the public, the tzibur, the community, something greater than he is, you amelim imahem leshem shamayim. There's a promise here. God will be amel. He will also work hard for you. He will also work hard for you leshem shamayim. Why? Shezchut avotam b'sayatam, the merit of their forefathers assists them in their quest, v'tzidkatam omedet lahem. And the tzidkut, their piety, stands forever. So what do we learn until now? Which has seemingly no connection to the beginning of our Mishnah. Those that are dealing with the tzibur, with the public, with the community, they're going to get great reward. The merit of their father is going to assist them, and their piety is going to stand forever. And the Mishnah ends, "V'atem ma'aleh ani alechem sachar harbe ke'ilu asitem." And you, and the Mishnah does not explain who it refers to. It says "V'atem," and you, ma'aleh ani alechem sachar harbe, I will give you a lot of reward, ke'ilu asitem, just like you have fulfilled your role, or you have done your work or your chores. This is a very vague and ununderstood. Something is not clear here in the end of the Mishnah. So, how do we explain the beginning and the end? So let's start with the beginning of the Mishnah. The beginning of the Mishnah talks about, very simply, very clearly, about two types of terminologies for work. One is derech eretz, one is melacha. And we understand from the tractate of Shabbat, the melacha is something that we do. It doesn't have to do with hard labor. Melacha, all the 39 melachot of Shabbat are melachot, works, and we call them melachot in Hebrew, that do not require so much labor and hard work. It's not physical. Melacha means something that you have to put your mind to it. The Gemara explains in Shabbos, melechet machshevet, something that is creative, something that is thought is put into it. That's melacha. A simple example is a person can carry a chair the whole day up and down the stairs on Shabbat. That's not considered a melacha. That's not considered labor. It is hard work. A person can carry a heavy table up 30 flights of stairs, but it's not prohibited on Shabbat because that's not melacha. Melacha is very, very defined in halacha, and melacha, the word melacha means work or action that thought is accompanied to, which means you're thinking about something, a thought process goes into doing a certain action. That's why the 39 melachot of Shabbat could be arbitrary, could be things that do not require a lot of labor, a lot of work, a lot of toil, a lot of hard labor. For example, striking a match on Shabbat. There's no hard work in it, but still not allowed. It's melacha, it's something creative. Sewing a button on Shabbat, same thing, it's called a melacha. So when we say Torah that doesn't have melacha accompanying it, and we have a double punishment here. So Fabetela, the Torah is going to go to waste, going to be nullified, and you're going to come to sin. What does the Mishnah say? This is a little bit of a deeper understanding. So Torah has to come with work that develops the mind. Develops the mind. Because if you're going to have work that is not a creative work, it's not one of the 39 melachot of Shabbat, not something that thought is put into it. Person says, oh, the Mishnah tells me that they have to do some labor. Okay, I'll learn Torah the whole day. And about 2 or 3 hours, I'm just going to move a chair from one place to another. That is something that the Mishnah says in the beginning. Derech Eretz, you have to have a job, you have to have something that, if you do both of them, then sin will not come upon you. Why? Because you are doing something that does not have you time, it does not give you time to sin. If a person really works hard, he basically is a mover. He moves chairs from one place to another. He moves boxes, he moves refrigerators. He's a mover. That's excellent. And he learns Torah. That the Mishnah tells us very simply, because there's a yegi'ah, because you are so busy in your life doing hard labor and learning Torah, you have no time, you're too tired to sin. Yegi'ah. Yegi'ah means to work really hard. So doing both of these things, you will not come to sin. But if you go the extra mile, and this is something very unique, you learn Torah, but your occupation is occupation of creativity, which means you don't do it just to excuse yourself from, only learning Torah. You're doing something on the side. The second part of the Mishnah said something very profound. You want to raise the level of your Torah learning? You have to find yourself an occupation that is creative, that is not an afterthought, but is something to begin with. In Hebrew, we have the terminology of lechatchila and bediah. Lechatchila means you don't do it because someone forces you, or you just want to, do it because the book says so. No. You start off your life by having in mind that you want to do some work. The work is being creative, and that creative work feeds your learning of Torah. And your learning of Torah is going to be heightened, is going to be more, not only creative, but more important, and something that is beyond just your regular learning. Let me explain to you why. Because a person is a lawyer, that's something creative. If a person is a designer, if a person is an architect, if a person is a doctor, anything that has creativity, that we call melacha, actually brings the Torah one level higher. Why is that? Because the more the mind gets creative, as the Rambam says in the Guide to the Perplexed, in order to understand God, you have to understand the way that the world works. You have to understand science. You have to understand math. In order to reach a high level in godliness, in the ways of Hashem, in the ways of God, you must know the ways of the world. And you can only know the ways of the world if you do a melacha, something that is creative. And that's why, if you do not do that, your Torah is going to be nullified. What does it mean? It's not that you will be someone that does not keep the Torah, but it's going to take your Torah to the lowest level. Yes, you'll know how to learn. You learn Daf Ma'ai, you learn Mishna, you learn whatever you learn, but you won't reach that level, and that Torah will be nullified in the end. Because Torah is like a treadmill. If you don't run, you'll move backwards. And it also brings upon a sin, because your understanding of the Torah will not be as high as if you do melacha together with learning of Torah. So that's the first part of the Mishnah. We explained something very simple. The difference between derech eretz and melacha. Derech eretz is person needs to work to make money. And no matter what work it is, it's fine. As long as it's respectful, and every work is respectful for any human being, which is fine. And if he does a hard job, he works hard and he learns Torah, he does not have time to sit. That's derech eretz, the way of the land. Everybody works. Jews, non-Jews, that's how it is. Second part is melacha. You have to do some creative work that's going to enhance and infuse your learning of Torah. So that's the first part of the Mishnah. And now you understand why Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, the one that compiled the Mishnah, gave that Mishnah to his son, because he wanted to teach him. Son, Rabban Gamliel, this is your Mishnah. Engrave it on your heart in order to take my work, my compilation of the Mishnah, and to move it and to inspire generations after generations. You cannot just sit and learn. You have to, number one, do some work. And if you want to get to the higher level, do something creative, do something with science, in order for it to enhance your learning of Torah. My Torah that I created, I wrote, says Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi to his son, Rabban Gamliel. That's the first thing. The second thing is a little bit of a worry. Why? Because some people do not have time to learn. They don't. They are the ones that are dealing with the community, the public, the shul, the charity works, anything that it does good to people. And they're saying to themselves, I don't know how to learn Torah. I work for a living, but Torah is not something that I can do the whole day. Not even half a day, not even a quarter of it. I'm good for community service. I'm good for charity work. So that's something that the Mishnah relates to. It says, whoever toils with the public, he lends his shoulder. He actually puts his shoulder under the stretcher and he carries the public forward. There's a promise that God does not forget. And he too will be rewarded. But only if he does it for the sake of doing it, not to get a recognition, not to have his name on the billboard, not to have his name on the building. Person really does work, L'Shem Shamayim, as we say, for the sake of heaven, and he does it for the public, there's going to be a great reward for him, even though he does not learn Torah. Even though he does not learn Torah. Why? Because Zchut Avot, the merit of his forefather, helps him. How does that work? He did not come to do communal work, charity work, just because he, saw people on the street do. Where did he learn it from? He learned it from his forefathers. And where did his forefathers learn? They were raised for thousands of years according to the Torah ways. The Torah ways tells us a person should love their neighbor as themselves. Don't do unto others what you don't want them to do to you. You should not hate your fellow human being. You should return a lost object. All these mitzvot that we know and that were engraved to us by Rabbi and his son went throughout the generations. And that Torah inspired people to do good, to work with the community, to do service for the community. So even though he does not learn Torah, but he does work for the sake of the public and not for recognition, the merit of his forefathers will help him, and his piety will stand forever. He will be remembered forever and ever for his doing. And now, Mishna concludes with the following sentence. V'atem ma'ali ani alechem sachar harbe ki'ilu atem asitem. Even though the merit of your fathers is the one that helped you, even though God recognizes it for people that are doing it for the sake of heaven. And there's another explanation, which I like very much, for the end of this Mishnah. All these individuals that are doing something for the public, they have a difficult job. Rabbi Ovadia Mibartenura, one of the famous commentators of the Mishnah, says anyone that deals with the community, with community matters, knows how hard it is. People that have to collect money, tzedakah, people that have to convince people to participate in certain things, to help other people. Sometimes they get bombarded with different requests. They get yelled at and screamed at. It's not a very comfortable situation to motivate people to work for the community. Whoever deals with community matters knows that. So because of that, Rabbi Ovadia Bartanura says sometimes you have to force the public to give tzedakah. So because it's an unpleasant job most times, the merit of the forefathers will help them. And whatever they collect, whatever they're able to collect through communal work, through them, as we say in Yiddish, nudging people to do something, to motivating people to do something, don't worry. All your suffering and all your anguish and all your unpleasantness, there's great reward for that because you motivated people to do good. And we'll end with the Rambam, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimonides, as we know. Maimonides ends this Mishnah with the following explanation. What does it mean, I give you reward as though as you have done what? What have you done? So the Rambam says, communal work many times comes at the expense of family life. But not only family life, it comes at the expense of your own personal growth. Person wants to learn Torah, but what can you do? A new bride that doesn't have money to get married needs someone to help her. A poor person needs someone to help him. A family in need, a divorcee, kids that are thrown out of their houses. So you have a guy dealing with all that. And he says to himself, it comes at the expense of my family. It comes at the expense of me learning Torah, of doing business, and more so, of doing other mitzvot. I want to do mitzvot. I want to do a lot of commandments, which I don't have time for because I'm doing communal work. The Rambam says something very brilliant. If you deal with communal work, I will give you a great reward, according to the Rambam, Maimonides, as though as you've done the mitzvah that you actually missed. And as though you have learned Torah, which you have missed because you have done communal work. So anything that you missed because you've done communal work, charity, that's something that I will give you back more and more. And how appropriate it is to finish this Mishnah with communal work and the reward for doing all the mitzvot in honor of our dear Eric, a great man that did communal work his whole life, dealt with charity his whole life. So in Shemayim now, he doesn't have to worry because whatever mitzvot he missed, the Mishnah says, I give you great reward because you did not have time to do X and Y and Z. You still get the reward as though you learned Torah, as though you've done the mitzvahs, as though you've done anything else because ani ma'aleh alechem sachar harubeh ke'ilu asitem. So there's three parts to the Mishnah. A 1 minute recap. We've dealt today with the difference between derech eretz, the way of the land, and melacha. What's the difference between them? One is regular work, one is work of creativity. And why does the Mishnah say that twice? Then we dealt with people that are busy with communal work, with working with the public, and with tzedakah. And what is their merit? Merit of their forefathers. Piety stands forever, etc. And then we give three explanations. The end of the Mishnah is why do they get great reward? Just like they have done, and the Mishnah does not conclude ki'ilu asitem. Just like you have done what? And we explained that according to Maimonides. So this is a great tribute to our dear Eric Samson of blessed memory. May his soul rest in peace. And may our Divrei Torah inspire all of us to do good just like he has done.